Me. Wait. Hey! What are you doing here? You want me to make a video? Ranking? But I haven't even beaten Act 3 yet. It can just be on Act 2? Fine. Okay. Since I don't feel like doing the normal worst to best ranking, I'm going to do best to worst. But it's not just that. No. I'm not going to rank them by how challenging or how much thought was put into this boss. I am solely basing this ranking off of how much each boss pissed me off in my first playthrough. For example, in Act 1, you know what's a great boss stylistically and moveset-wise? Morwing. You know what boss made me want to chuck my controller out the window and never ever play this game again? Morwing. That is what I mean with this boss ranking. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, first up in the please let me fight it again tier is my favorite boss of the game, the First Sinner. This boss is just cool as hell. I mean, it's super fast paced and it's literally like you're fighting a giant copy of you. The moveset is really amazing on this boss. It is really fun. And it is really a good boss at getting you used to the speed of some of the later bosses. It can be kind of found late in Act 2, but most people find it mid Act 2, and it really helps you with some of the bosses that get way faster in Act 2 and in Act 3. Plus, the absolute best part of this boss, besides the boss, is there is zero run back. Absolutely zero run back, which basically happens for no other bosses in this game. It is just this guy. Almost every single boss has a run back in Act 2. It is just this guy, and it is fantastic. The only bad thing I would have to say about this boss is why does it not refresh your tools when you die? I get that it's a memory boss, but it makes it really annoying that you have to run back to a bench every single time you die, or you just have to deal without tools. But this fight is so much fun. I don't think tools are that necessary, so it didn't really affect me too much, but that was something I noticed. Other than that, though, this boss is easily the least annoying boss for me in every way. And when it was over, I was genuinely hoping for another phase, even though it has like 3 phases already and does the Widow fake out death thing. I just wanted more. It's such a good boss. After First Sinner, I think Lace would probably be the next best boss in terms of not making me want to break my monitor. This boss is really difficult. At least for me, I don't know, a lot of people online say this boss is not that difficult and it's very well telegraphed. But something about that parry gets me every time. Something in my brain just tells me, run away, when literally you can never run away from that parry. It will always catch you. She probably took me about a good hour until I felt comfortable getting past her first phase. But something about how Team Cherry designed this boss just makes it feel very pleasing to fight her. She doesn't really make you mad when you die, you just feel like you're getting closer to mastering every move she has. Parrying the boss is really cool too, since it's basically built into her. She wants you to parry her, Team Cherry does. I don't think she wants you to parry her. But basically every time you parry her, it works perfectly, and they're obviously pointing you towards it since she tries to parry you every other move. If I was to say anything bad about this boss, it's maybe just that it feels like she has a very small health pool. The video I got of me beating her is about a minute and 40 seconds long, which just seems like more of a mini-boss than a real second-to-last boss in Act 2. But there's not really much more to say about Lace besides she's just really fun and I want her to last longer. Do you guys hear that? Wow, wind must be really strong today. Huh. Anyways, the next boss is... Okay, I know this is an unpopular opinion, and a lot of people get really annoyed by this boss, but genuinely, Trobio is an amazing boss. The moveset he has is so much fun. It almost reminds me of like a mix of Soul Master and Grim, the way he just runs around shooting stuff at you in every which way. For sure, my favorite part about him is the noises he makes when he fights you. They're just Yeah, any annoyance you have fighting with this guy leaves every time you hear his sound effects. I mean, how could you dislike the guy? He's just stupid. Like, even when you beat Trobio, he's just playing dead and you can hear him get up when you leave the room. The one thing I have against Trobio, which I have for a lot of other bosses, is the run back. Trobio is far from the worst run back, but it's not that easy either. You have to run from Songglaive through the Whispering Vaults and dodge a bunch of enemies, or you do some parkour in some pipe systems and then fall down a large hallway dodging spikes and flying enemies. Either way, it kind of just makes restarting Trobio not as fun as it could be, but overall I still love him. The Cogwork Dancers are a fan favorite boss. I mean, how could they not be? They're basically a more complicated version of the Mantis Lords, and they come with some really cool lore. I'm not gonna say this lore, because it's kind of spoilers for Act 3, but trust me, it's cool. They're also the first boss in Act 2 for most people, including me, which makes them even more memorable. Their moveset is really unique and telegraphed and makes you feel like you're part of their dance at times. I have to admit, I actually really struggled with this boss more than almost any other boss on this list. Something about the way they swing their blades out when they hit the ground, I just could not dodge correctly for the life of me. I would literally forget they do it every single time they'd hit the ground, and I would just keep getting hit. But once this boss clicks for you, it clicks. It very much reminds me of how a boss like the Mantis Lords or Hive Knight just clicks for you once you die to them enough. The added layer of the ending of this boss being just one dancer trying to do their attacks, but their partner isn't there to complete them, it breaks my heart. It really makes you feel bad for having to kill this boss. There is one thing about this boss that makes it worse than the bosses I've already talked about, though. And that thing is... Now I know what you're gonna say. Well, why don't you just jump over them? It is not that easy, okay? You do not have wings at this point, so you can't just double jump over them, and poking them is easier said than done. So either you spend like 5 minutes fighting both knights, or you try to pogo over them and probably take a hit of damage or two and go into the fight weakened. It's just very annoying, and I vividly remember being very upset on my first playthrough just trying to get to the amazing boss, having to get past these absolute tanks standing in front of the boss entrance. The boss first up in the I'm only slightly annoyed tier is the second Sentinel. This boss was honestly really fun. It doesn't have any of the annoying tropes some Silksong bosses can have. It doesn't spawn any random enemies, which is very nice. It doesn't have a gauntlet before the fight, and it doesn't have a super long run back. It's just a really good boss that feels really fun to fight. I love the build up to Second Sentinel too, where you get to see them fight enemies in the coral chambers, and then when you get to fight with the Sentinels, they're using the same attacks on you that they were on the other enemies. Honestly, this boss could very well be in the same tier as Cogwork Dancers or First Sinner, but this boss just has one thing that brings it down a notch for me. Why is the arena so small? Its arena is literally like trying to fight Nosk in your Bell home. You can actually walk the whole length of the arena in like 3 seconds. Especially for a boss that's so much fun with such a cool moveset, it's just really disappointing. It's definitely not bad enough to put it lower than the top of the slightly annoyed tier, but... whew. Still a great boss, though. After Second Sentinel, I think I'm gonna have to go with Disgrace Chef Lagoli. Oh, sorry. Hold on. There we go. Lagoli is a boss that's often forgotten in a game with so many amazing bosses, but this boss honestly just has a special place in my heart because of one thing. How absolutely stupid it is. This giant chef pops out of the ground, throwing maggot slime balls at you, and your first thought is, please not another boss that relies on giving you the poison effect, because the entire area before this is just the poison effect, and 2 other areas ahead of this are too. That's if you haven't met those yet. But that annoyance immediately leaves when he literally turns around and throws it back at you as an attack. Plus, if you wear the Ring of Purity, which I had at that point, I'm not sure how common it is to have it since it's technically after the boss fight, But if you wear that, it just becomes really fun and stupid because the maggot effect is completely gone. And it helps you progress towards completing the quest to the second pale oil, which is very nice. I always like getting my nail upgraded, and if a boss can give me a direct upgrade like that, it immediately goes higher up on the list for me of best bosses. But it does still have the gauntlet before the fight, and it's just so little of a fight that I don't think I could put it higher than something like Second Sentinel, so it goes here. Okay, can I rant about Grandmother Silk for a second? This boss is far from bad, but it just isn't as amazing and exciting as what the game makes you believe it's going to be. I mean, first off, the boss literally isn't even as difficult as Lace 2, which is right before it. Lace feels like way more of a challenge than Grandmother Silk is. Plus, almost every NPC you meet mentions Grandmother Silk, and you see her effects on the land of Farloom. Your whole goal is to get to Grandmother Silk and beat her. So when you get to her and all she really is a Radiance downgrade that sometimes does that one Cogwork Dancer's attack, it's just really disappointing. Don't get me wrong, she is still a good boss, and I had fun fighting her, but I just remember the first time I beat her, I immediately was thinking there has gotta be another phase, because it just felt so short. I will say, the visuals on this boss are insane, and it is fun. It's just way too easy to be the final boss of such an amazing and challenging game. I'm glad there's an Act 3. Is Voltverm even a boss? I know he technically is because the title card pops up, and when I checked the wiki for this video, it definitely says he is, but this guy is a mini-boss. He is not a real boss. I honestly don't have much to say about him because he was just really easy. I guess the run back is insane. That's really it. Luckily though, this boss is so easy you shouldn't ever have to run back to it more than once or twice. The area is really cool though, like, that's something. I really like the visuals that the anemone type creatures bring, but I don't know, there's not really much to say about this guy. He's just not much. The area is cooler than the boss. I don't know. The Raging Conchfly is a boss I would think most of you think I absolutely hate. Because, my name is Trike Hates Conchflies. But the conchflies I actually hate are these ones, and these actual Satan spawns. But this guy, honestly, he's not that bad. He's super telegraphed, and even his cone shot attack is crazy easy to dodge, surprisingly, since you're in a rectangular room with no weird obstacles for it to bounce off of and snipe you from 30 feet away. Even when he spawns enemies, and you would think the boss fight would get really annoying with having to manage 4 conchflies at the same time, they're also super telegraphed and don't attack you randomly. It's always in the flow of the boss fight. The things that do make this boss fight kind of annoying are just the fact that this boss can be a little redundant, and the run back can be insane if you run by the easy to miss shortcut. Other than that, this boss really isn't that bad and fits well within the only slightly annoying tier. At this point in the video is where I start to genuinely not like bosses. So first up in the why do you spawn so many enemies tier is Father of the Flame. There's so little to even talk about with this boss because it's literally just dodging flying bombs while hitting weak points on the tree. The second phase is okay, I guess. It gets a little more interesting, but honestly this boss feels like more of a chore than an actual boss. Also, if you get to this boss late with a couple needle upgrades already, like I did, it becomes comically easy. Each arm on the tree takes about 5 or 6 hits to break. But yeah, this boss is just very forgettable and really boring. I will say the area this boss is in is very cool. It reminds me of Dark Souls a lot with the flame aspects, and then the actual area itself and enemies remind me of the undead settlement from Dark Souls 3. The run back for this boss, though, is absolute hell. I hate the run back on this boss more than almost any other boss in this ranking besides maybe the worst one. Something about those flame enemies just drive me up a wall. But luckily you shouldn't really have to repeat this boss very much because of how easy it is. I am warning you, this is your warning. Do not do what I did with Four Brothers Cygnus and Gron. There's a slight spoiler warning for Act 3, so skip to this timestamp to not get spoiled. Anyways, after I was done with Deep Docks in Act 1, I never wanted to go back there because I hate every enemy down there. They just all make me mad. So, because I hated all those enemies, I didn't fight Four Brothers Cygnus and Gron until Act 3, which doesn't sound too bad. I should actually be buffed to make the boss kind of easy, right? Wrong. Every enemy Cygnus would spawn in the first phase was buffed by the Void. Then, when Gron dropped down, he was buffed by the Void too. So this boss genuinely took me more tries than any other boss in the game. It took me more tries than the final boss of Act 3. Luckily, in my second playthrough, I remembered to fight them before going into Act 3, and I can safely say I still do not like this boss. It is, though, way easier and more reasonable than fighting it in Act 3. But this boss would be so much better if it didn't spawn enemies in the first phase. This is a gripe I have with a lot of bosses, but I just feel enemy spawning in most cases just takes away from the fun of a boss. It's just cheap. It's hiding the fact that the actual boss fight itself isn't that interesting most of the time. I wish this boss was just Cygnus in the first phase, probably buffed up a little bit so that it was a little more challenging, because I get that there needed to be more of a challenge than just Cygnus and then Cygnus and Gron. But if this fight was just a little bit more of a buffed up Cygnus and then Gron drops down, I would love this boss, because Cygnus and Gron together is really fun. It's really cool, the dynamic they have fighting. But the enemy spawn at the beginning, and the fact that if you don't kill those enemies in time before Gron drops down, you then have to fight like 4 enemies at the same time, it just becomes not fun. And that's why it's in this tier. If you've been keeping track up to this point, you'd know we're on to our last 2 bosses. Guess which boss is next up? It is 100% not that one, so it's gotta be Unraveled. Okay, I know I just made a joke about how Unraveled is the obvious pick here, but if the last boss in this ranking didn't exist, Unraveled would easily be the worst boss here by a landslide. Unraveled is a boss fight that is very easily missable. I actually completely missed him on my first playthrough, and I only fought him like 3 minutes ago. I'm still mad about him. And I will say, before I get into the bad things, the atmosphere and build up to this boss is really cool. I absolutely love the area of White Ward. It is so creepy and unnerving, and the boss arena you fight Unraveled in being so dark and eerie just makes the boss seem really cool when you get to him. But that is where the good things about this boss hit a brick wall. First off, this boss is giant. I mean, a good quarter to a third of the size of the arena big. And every time you touch him, it does double damage. It doesn't matter if he's running into you, it doesn't matter if he's throwing something, everything does double damage. Then, he moves around a lot. He literally teleports every 3 seconds. He comes out of the ground really quickly. You almost have no time to react. And then half of the moves that come out of him jumping up out of the ground is him running towards you. So it is so hard to just dodge him being huge. I don't know if I was just having a bad day while fighting this boss, but something about him just makes me so unbelievably angry. I think it's because most of the time when you get hit by him, it's just because you happen to be standing there when he pops out of the ground. And the reason you always get hit when he pops out of the ground is because he gives you about 1 millisecond to think before he absolutely smacks you for 2 damage. Because he's just so big. And just to top it all off, you have to go down a super long elevator every single time you respawn. And that elevator is always at the bottom, so you have to wait for it to go all the way up and then all the way back down. Nailsmith, well, what are you doing at the edge of the cliff?
Ranjo Stenja.
What do you mean? I can't strike you off the edge of this cliff. You've done so much for me.
Vendasu.
You have to fight Groal the Great? Why didn't you just say that in the first place? Groal the Great is... Where do I even start with Groal? He is by far the worst boss I have ever fought in Silksong or Hollow Knight. He has grabbed Nosk by the neck, strangled him out, and threw him in maggot water so he cannot revive. Let's just start with the actual boss. When you enter Groal's arena, you are immediately met with several waves of the most annoying enemies and traps. Not only this, but half of the floor is the maggot water stuff that gives you the binding debuff. So if you don't have Ring of Purity, this boss becomes even more torturous than it already was. Then, after you fight the enemies, Groal himself spawns out of the water. Now, the first thing you might notice is that Groal is absolutely gigantic. He takes up a very large amount of his tiny little arena, making this fight even more difficult since you have to not only dodge his attacks, but dodge his body too. Then you get to his actual attacks, which are throw stuff at you, spawn enemies, drop a trap, Kirby consume you, or the worst part, the thing that I always hate that every boss in this game does, is just spawn out of the ground. I absolutely hate that move. Unraveled and Groll rely on it so heavily, and I cannot dodge it for the life of me. But besides all of that is already very annoying. That's not even close to the worst part. Do you want to guess how far away the closest bench is from this boss? Maybe a room or two over or something? No, it's only the entire map away. You have to go from here to here. And no, you can't take this way up. That's only unlocked after you beat him. You have to quite literally go from here, go all the way through here, back up, and then around to here. And yes, I do know there is a closer bench, but if you want to fight this boss without the Ring of Purity, you absolutely have to use this bench since the way back up from the secret bench forces you into the maggot water. And it's not like this bench is way better or anything. The two rooms that you have to clear before you get to Groal from the secret bench are literally the worst and longest rooms to Groal. They are the worst rooms in the whole run. But with all that being said, Grohl is much deserving of this ranking. He is the worst boss in Hollow Knight Silksong by an absolute landslide. Thank you so much for watching. This is my first time making a YouTube video in like forever, so it took way longer to make than I thought it was going to. If you enjoyed it, maybe just put in the comments a video idea you'd like to see. I'm planning on trying to post Silksong content pretty regularly, so yeah, bye.